Welcome to the all-new Hoop Nova, your ultimate source for everything basketball.
After finally winning their first NBA championship in decades, you might expect the New York Knicks to make some huge moves this offseason. Maybe a blockbuster trade, a major free agent signing, or at least a couple of moves that completely change the roster. Instead, the Knicks have done almost nothing. And honestly, that might be the smartest thing they could have done. When you look at the roster, the salary situation, the lack of draft capital, and the development already happening within the organization, there simply wasn't a major problem that needed fixing. The Knicks didn't need to reinvent themselves. They needed to protect what already worked. And that's exactly what they've done. The biggest reason New York is in this position is because they didn't build this championship team overnight. They spent multiple off-seasons putting the pieces together. First came the major additions that transformed the roster, then came the moves that strengthened the starting lineup, and last off-season they focused on building the depth behind their stars. That patience finally paid off. Instead of constantly chasing the next big name, the Knicks created a roster where almost every player has a specific role. Now, after winning the championship, they have the luxury of continuity. And in today's NBA, continuity might be one of the biggest advantages a championship team can have. At the center of everything is Jalen Brunson. During the playoffs, Brunson showed exactly why New York believes he can be the face of this franchise for years. He shot nearly 47% from the field and around 36% from three while taking on an enormous offensive workload. And then came the performance that Knicks fans will never forget: 45 points in a close-out Game 5 on the road, delivering when the pressure was at its absolute highest. Brunson has spent his entire career being doubted because of his size, but eventually the conversation stops being about what a player cannot do and starts being about what he actually does. Brunson has become one of the most dangerous guards in basketball, and now the Knicks are asking him to lead them towards something even harder: back-to-back championships. Brunson will enter next season at 30 years old, and his current 3-year contract is eventually expected to become much more lucrative. New York knows exactly how important he is, and there is no reason to believe they are planning on changing that core. But Brunson isn't the only reason this team works. Karl-Anthony Towns has become one of the most fascinating pieces on the roster because Mike Brown has found a completely different way to use him. Instead of simply asking Towns to stand around the perimeter and score, the Knicks turned him into a playmaking hub. He can operate from the middle of the floor, read the defense, create opportunities for teammates, and then attack the basket or shoot when the defense gives him space. That versatility makes him incredibly difficult to defend. Towns averaged roughly 16 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists during the playoffs while shooting an absurd 55% from the field and 46% from three. Those numbers don't even fully explain his value. The biggest issue is keeping him on the floor because foul trouble can completely change the game. But when Towns is playing without restrictions, the Knicks are simply a different basketball team. At 7 feet tall with elite shooting ability and enough passing skill to punish defensive rotations, he gives New York something almost impossible to replicate. He is basically a 7-foot offensive hub who can stretch the floor while still controlling the game from inside. Then you have OG Anunoby, and this is where the Knicks become terrifying defensively. Anunoby was phenomenal throughout the playoffs, providing elite defense while becoming a legitimate offensive weapon. He averaged more than 20 points per game while shooting an incredible 49% from three. And his ability to guard multiple positions allowed New York to change defensive matchups without sacrificing size. His strength, length, and physicality make him one of the most valuable two-way wings in the league. And when the game gets tight, he's capable of making the kind of defensive play that completely changes momentum. Mikal Bridges complements Anunoby perfectly. While Anunoby can handle bigger, stronger offensive players, Bridges gives New York another defender who can chase quicker guards and wings around the floor. Offensively, Bridges accepted a smaller role and didn't try to force himself into being a star. He averaged around 14 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists while shooting close to 49% from the field and 37% from three. That might not sound spectacular on paper, but that's exactly why his role was so valuable. He understood that this team didn't need another player demanding 20 shots every night. They needed someone who could defend, move the ball, hit big shots, and stay ready. Bridges did exactly that. And then there's Josh Hart, the player who makes the entire lineup feel connected. Hart does all the little things that don't always show up in the box score. He fights for loose balls, crashes the boards, defends bigger players, pushes the pace, makes smart passes, and somehow finds ways to contribute offensively without needing the ball constantly. During the playoffs, he averaged around 12 points, 7 rebounds, and nearly 5 assists while shooting efficiently from the field. He's the type of player every championship team needs because his energy can completely change a game. The Knicks also discovered another weapon in Landry Shamet. Whenever teams started leaving Hart open and daring him to shoot, Shamet could enter the game and punish them. He became a reliable floor spacer and proved that he could handle pressure without disrupting the offense. His playoff shooting was outstanding, and New York rewarded him with a 4-year contract because they clearly believe his shooting and off-ball movement can remain valuable. Finally, José Alvarado gives the Knicks something completely different. He's a defensive chaos creator. He pressures ball handlers, fights through screens, jumps passing lanes, and constantly makes opponents uncomfortable. He doesn't need 15 points to impact a game. Sometimes all it takes is one steal, one deflection, or one possession where he completely destroys the opposing team's rhythm. New York rewarded him with a new contract because those types of players become incredibly important during a long playoff run. And that's why the Knicks don't need to make a huge move this offseason. Their biggest strength is the fact that everyone already understands their role. Brunson is the offensive engine. Towns is the versatile big man hub. Anunoby and Bridges provide elite two-way wing play. Hart brings the energy and toughness. Shamet provides shooting, while Alvarado brings defensive chaos. This isn't a roster waiting for another superstar. This is a championship roster trying to stay healthy, improve internally, and run it back. In an NBA where teams constantly destroy their own chemistry searching for the next upgrade, the Knicks might be doing the most important thing of all, leaving a championship team alone. The Knicks also have some really interesting young pieces developing behind their veterans, and that could become extremely important during another long playoff run. One of those players is José Alvarado, who still has plenty of room to grow and can provide an instant spark whenever the team needs energy. Alongside Deuce McBride, New York has one of the toughest defensive guard duos coming off the bench. They may not be the biggest guards in the league, but both players are incredibly physical, aggressive, and willing to defend for every possession. McBride didn't have the strongest playoff run, but his regular season production showed why the Knicks value him. He averaged around 12 points per game while shooting 42% from the field and 41% from 3 on more than 6 attempts per game. At just 26 years old, he's still entering his prime. And even though he's heading toward a new contract, his ability to defend and knock down threes makes him one of the most reliable backup guards on the roster. The Knicks' one major free agency move was bringing in Andre Drummond. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense. Offensively, Drummond can give New York much of what they previously got from Mitchell Robinson. He averaged roughly 6.5 points and 8.5 rebounds per game last season, while also providing another physical presence around the basket. His shooting numbers from 3 were obviously a very small sample, but the real question is what happens defensively. That's where New York could take a step backward compared with Robinson. Still, the Knicks have young players who could develop into bigger contributors and eventually help fill that gap. One name to watch is Pac Daddy. He is still extremely young, but the physical tools are already there. Standing around 6'9" with a long wingspan, he has the kind of frame that NBA teams love in a modern forward. He didn't receive a huge opportunity last season, but that's exactly why patience matters with him. The Knicks don't need him to become a star immediately. If he can improve his shooting, defense, and decision-making, he could eventually become another valuable rotation piece. The same goes for Mohamed Diawara, another young forward with impressive physical tools. At around 6'9" with a wingspan stretching over 7 feet, he has the size and length to defend multiple positions. His development will take time, but he has already shown flashes as a shooter and could eventually become a useful two-way piece. Having young players like this is important because championship teams eventually need inexpensive contributors around their expensive stars. Then there's Tyler Kolek, who quietly showed that he belongs in the NBA. Whenever the Knicks needed him last season, he was capable of running the offense. making smart passes, and knocking down open shots. He shot around 44% from the field and nearly 39% from three, giving New York another reliable option in the backcourt. With injuries inevitable over an 82-game season, having a player like Kolek at the end of the rotation could become extremely valuable. And that's ultimately why I love what New York has done. They didn't panic after winning the championship. They kept their core together, added a veteran big man, maintained their guard depth, and continued developing young players behind their stars. Leon Rose and the Knicks front office have built this roster patiently over multiple seasons, and now they're in position to defend their championship without needing to make another blockbuster move. If the key players stay healthy, New York has everything necessary to be right back in championship contention next season.